topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Powerful Business Strategies, where you will find out that everything you have ever learned about growing your business is wrong. Finally, a show where you'll learn the right way to grow your business by learning business and financial strategies that your competition isn't doing. And now, here is your host, President of Next Step CFO, Michael Barbarita. And joining Michael for today's show as an executive moderator is Chucky Obia.
Yes, this is Chucky, and I believe that gratitude is undefeated and growth is about the next step. So it is an honor for me to moderate today's discussion with my good friend, Michael. Michael, how are you?
Great, Chucky. How you doing?
I am doing well, hopefully you had a nice 4th of July week and weekend.
Well, sometimes I can't tell all my secrets about how much I love my business. So,
well, there you go.
Yes.
So look, a quick disclaimer: Michael and I are both affiliated with a number of different organizations, and I currently serve as the managing director of business development for Vedder Price, a global business-focused law firm. In addition to that, I collaborate with Michael to moderate business roundtables really across the country. And then we document the insights that we get from those business roundtables. And we've actually pulled a number of those insights into our book, Powerful Business Strategies. So same name as the show. Now, please note that the views expressed on this show are our personal views based on our successful experiences. And my mission today as your fearless moderator is to ask the right questions to help you and help me, candidly, learn the best business strategies that the competition isn't doing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Chucky. So my name is Michael Barbarita. I'm the president of Next Step CFO. And Next Step CFO is a fractional CFO and strategic implementation firm. And our vision is to ensure overwhelmed business owners achieve the time freedom and consistent profits to build a legacy and the life they desire. Our mission is to empower small business owners to earn multiple six figures in profit and income and build seven figures in business value. And this show, Powerful Business Strategies, and our book of the same name, is a step toward accomplishing that vision and mission. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to my co-author and moderator for the show, Chucky Obia.
Yes. So Michael, it's interesting. And you mentioned legacy, and I really love your reference to legacy. And even just thinking of the name of the business, Next Step CFO, legacy is about that next step, taking that next step. And one of the ways that we've organized these episodes is to have an impactful story that we share, and then we connect that story to a strategy. So in our first episode, we had started to talk through just this incredible story, Michael, of your career trajectory to what led you to establish the business at Next Step CFO, and candidly, some of the victories that you've had, some of the vulnerabilities that you've had. So I was just really inspired by that. And folks, because we've got a number of people listening on this, look, if you've not checked out that first episode, I would highly recommend you check that out. Michael put together a really inspirational story just as part of his business background. Now, we talked about the conversion formula, right? The conversion equation. And a big part of that, Michael, if you recall, I mean, we got into a really good discussion and we didn't get through all the points that we wanted to get through. So let's complete that discussion. And then, Michael, there's a piece of that conversion equation that I want to ask you some questions on as it relates to how business owners can make compelling offers in the way that the competition isn't doing.
Okay.
So let's pick up on that first with the conversion equation.
Okay. Thank you, Chucky. So as Chucky said, last week I talked about the conversion formula, and this is a formula that converts prospects to sales. I got to the fourth and final step of the conversion formula called the compelling offer, and we ran out of time. So today, I'll tell you a couple of ways that I used a couple of the components of compelling offers. Then I'll review the conversion formula again, and then I'll go over the 5 components of a compelling offer, and hopefully we have time for all of that. So my first business was a specialty retail business, and we grew the company from 2.5 million to 8 million in 5 years.
Wow.
Now, yeah, a contributing factor to that growth was a strategy called a risk reversal, where the seller in the transaction takes all or most of the risk. And one of the problems that the customer had in the ski industry is they really never knew if the ski they were being sold by some hotshot ski salesperson was was the right ski for them. And a lot of people were intimidated by those hotshot ski salespeople. We actually learned that in surveys, Chucky. They come across really slick with their their ski lingo, and it's very intimidating to a prospect. Yeah, amazing.
Remarkable. So you said ski lingo. There's a whole dictionary and encyclopedia of ski terminology.
I wish I knew it. I'm not a hotshot ski salesperson. So we implemented what we called a ski guarantee, where we let the customer ski the ski 3 times. If it wasn't right for them, they could take it back and would refit them with a brand new pair. Now, Chucky, just so you understand, when a pair of bindings goes on a pair of skis, it depreciates substantially. Not to mention, it depreciates even more when it gets skied on.
Ah.
Yeah. So my employees and managers thought I was nuts. Yeah, but I knew that no competitors would actually do it. So, and since the prospect was pretty intimidated by that hotshot lingo, they really never knew until they got up to a mountain whether the ski was right for them. So we implemented this, and we sold 8,000 pair of skis the first year we implemented it. That was a 25% increase, and only 8 came back. The next year,
remarkable.
Yeah. Wow. Next year, 11,000 pair, and only 14 came back. It's testament to the fact that customers love to buy. They just don't want to be sold.
That's true.
Because as long as they had that assurance that they could ski the ski and determine on their own whether it was right for them, they weren't looking to put one over on the store. 8,000 pair of skis, 8 came back. 11,000 pair of skis, 14 came back. That's 1%, I believe, or less. It's just a testament to the fact that customers love to buy. They just don't like to be sold.
It's interesting. And Michael, look, you and I, we've both been in business a while. Certainly, you've got quite a bit of experience. I'm fascinated by how much emotion is involved with buying decisions. Even just to pick up on that comment about how people don't like to be sold to, right? They feel like salespeople are pushy, or when they have a bad sales experience, it's always described in kind of an emotional way when they have a bad sales experience. And then when they have a good sales experience, it's also described in an emotional way, right? It seems like buying decisions really revolve around emotions.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And when we get to the conversion formula, because I do have one more story about another component of the compelling offer. But yeah, when we get to the conversion formula, we'll see how we can actually get into the mind of the prospect based on 2 emotional issues.
Brilliant.
And so we'll get to that. But another contributing factor to the growth of our ski business was a strategy called packaging and bundling. Yeah, everybody in the ski business, everybody packaged skis, bindings, and poles. And when I say everybody, I mean I don't know if there was a store or a ski chain in America that didn't package skis, bindings, and poles. And I'm pretty sure, although I'm not up on it, I still think that's the case today. Well, we also did.
Okay.
But we also package clothing. Why? Yeah.
Okay, so I want to pinpoint this. So you folks were doing a lot of what the competition was doing in just having kind of the ski package, right?
Right.
But then if I understand what you're saying correctly, Michael, it seems like you introduced this new kind of bundle that the competition was not doing.
Correct. That's
Please
right.
Tell me a little bit about that and maybe even some of the resistance that you may have gotten with that.
Okay, sure. So we also packaged skis, but we decided that packaging is a part of a compelling offer, and so we packaged clothing, and we packaged a parka, a ski pant, a sweater, and a hat, packaged up for $99.95. And Chucky, we sold out every single time.
Wow.
Every single time. And the management was against it because, well, they felt it was an inventory nightmare. Yeah. Which I will admit, it was an inventory challenge, but not quite a nightmare if you buy it right, and if you merchandise it right. So they were a little gun shy about doing it because of that. But everything was all color coordinated. Not only the clothing pieces were color coordinated, but also they were color coordinated with many of the ski package combinations.
Interesting.
So it was a way for the person who came to the store that was just interested in clothing, to actually show them a package that matches the clothing package that they just bought.
That's interesting, Michael. I want to pick up on that, right? I mean, from my perspective, this connects to that whole emotional buying experience, right? Where you mentioned color coordination. I imagine there's maybe a sense of pride, maybe some kind of an image that these customers wanted to portray with having matching components to their ski outfit. Just give me a sense of that.
Yeah.
How much of that was sort of emotional? It's like, oh, I've got this kind of blue getup, or I've got this red getup, and it sort of all coordinates.
Yeah. Well, it was a problem that they had. They had two problems, Chucky. One was they really didn't know if the ski they were being sold was the right ski for them.
Interesting.
And their other problem was more of a fashion problem.
Exactly.
Are they being able to make a fashion statement when they go on the slopes? And it's not that. It was both male and female. It wasn't just single gender on that. It was both male and female that wanted to make sure that they were color coordinated from head to toe. And it's easy to put together a clothing package that's color coordinated, relatively easy. But to make sure then that it matched the ski packages, that was another challenge. But a lot of the ski manufacturers made sure and actually consulted with the clothing companies when they chose their colors for their skis and bindings and boots. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So, Michael, look, we've got a lot of business owners tuned in and listening, right? And across different industries, service industries, product industries. Now, folks might hear you describe this idea of a compelling offer and how you got some resistance, Michael, from your management team, particularly as it relates to inventory. And, some of these folks might be thinking, Michael, you were able to pull that off, but I don't know how we pull that off on this end. Even if they buy into the fact that, yes, customers and clients are making buying decisions. For example, people want to make fashion statements with color coordinations. People want good deals with the bundle packages, but there's no way that I could get through my management team on that. There's just no way that I could do that in my business. What would be your response to those business owners?
Well, lots of times I did listen to them. To be totally honest with you, there's just certain things that a business owner feels will work or needs to try.
Yes.
That you have to kind of pound the table on. And those two examples were two examples. Most of the time, because when I got into the ski business, I never skied before. So I was really green to the entire business and had to depend upon the experience of the people that I hired to guide me. and decision making. But there were certain things that I knew that the conservative nature of my staff wouldn't go for, but that I wanted to try. And so if you're selective in pounding the table on certain things, you'll gain their respect, especially if it works. Now, obviously, if it doesn't work, you run the risk of losing their respect. But the reason why it didn't work needs to be explained, and you have to take the blame for it, meaning as the business owner. And that's where you regain the respect of the staff.
That's so spot on. And Michael, I'm taking some notes on this because part of what you're driving at is the fundamental characteristic of a good leader, right? Just good leadership is you have to take some risks. You've got to lead, right? And you also have to consult with different stakeholders to then drive that decision-making process. So I really resonate with that. And I want to pick up on that point, particularly as it relates to what we talked about in the first episode. So this idea of a conversion formula where you feel like there's a need in the marketplace, there's a want, a desire in the marketplace that your service or your solution or your product is situated to address. And you might be getting some resistance from management, you might be getting some resistance from employees, but you still have to push forward and make that case to the marketplace. Now, what I remember from the conversion formula were there are 4 steps. There's the captivate, there's the fascinate, there's the educate, and then there's this concept of a compelling offer, right? So did I recount that correctly? Because I know you and I have done some research on this, even as part of our book.
Yes,
did
absolutely.
That recounted correctly. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, brilliant, Michael. Let's pick up on this point then. And again, I want you to look at this through the lens of how leaders have to lead. How do you take a basic offer and make it compelling?
Okay, so, well, Chucky, what I'd like to do first is go through the conversion formula leading to the offer and then talk about the compelling offer. So
absolutely, would love that.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. And so the key to what our research showed when we were writing our book is that the key to successful marketing is that you must enter the conversation taking place in the head of the prospects. Now, you might say, well, Michael, how in the world am I going to read someone's mind? Well, you're not, but here's what we observed, that you can enter the conversation taking place in the buyer's mind when centered around 2 things.
Okay.
One is the problem the customer has that they don't want. And second, the solution they want that they can't find. And so we enter the conversation in the buyer's mind using what we call the conversion formula. So now, here's the thing about the conversion formula. It is a 4-part formula that allows you to address the prospect's problem and solution and do so at the right time, just like if you were in the prospect's mind.
Okay.
Yeah, and it must be followed like any other formula. It must be followed in the exact order. Otherwise, it just doesn't even have a chance. So let me review the conversion formula again, because it is such an important topic in business. I did say it last week, but I do want to review it again, and I might even review it a few more times because it's that critical. So the conversion formula starts with what we call the captivate. Now, the captivate is the headline, which happens to be the problem that the customer has that they don't want. And it's designed to stop the prospect in their tracks, to interrupt them, if you will. And this headline or problem is the first thing that you say out of your mouth or what a person sees or hears from your business. And it must really identify the problem that they have, as you only have 3 seconds to keep their attention. So what I mean by that is, I think I gave this example last week about the painter. A painting company can't say that the problem their customer has is they can't pick the right color paint, because any painter can help you pick the right color paint. But what you've got to do is identify the problem that the prospect has. Maybe not, probably one perspective is the problem they have with the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, I don't know, they go in with dirty feet. You know what I mean? And they make a mess of the house.
Yeah, there's no cleanup afterwards. Yeah.
No, or no cleanup, or they go in like a slob. So it's really identifying the problem that's important, and that's a process in itself. It's not one of these things where you just sit down and think about all the problems that a customer has, because in all likelihood, those are the problems that your competitors can solve. You got to identify a problem that your competitors, maybe they can solve it, but they haven't thought about bringing it to the front.
Interesting. Well, look, I mean, Michael, you're striking a pretty hot iron here, because we're getting some nice comments and questions. So this question just related to what you last said. How much time do you think a business owner's got to really invest in identifying that problem that is a little bit deeper than what their competition's already identified and is solving?
Well, Chucky, it's a 13-week process.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is that, and it takes that long. And sometimes, depending upon the industry, it could take a little longer than that. It could take 16, 17, 18 weeks. Very rarely does it take 10 or 11, but it can. So anywhere between 10 and 16, 17 weeks, because there's a process that you have to go through in order to identify that problem, and that unique problem, and that problem that you can solve. Because there might need to be some operational changes that you have to make in order to solve that problem.
Oh, I see. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But obviously, if those operational problems can't be made, then you have to focus on a different problem. But there's a lot that goes into identifying the problem.
Okay.
There's a lot that goes into identifying the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so those are the things that take most of the time of the 13 weeks. And then the second step is, now that you've interrupted the prospect with the problem, we have to keep their attention, and we have to engage them with a subheadline or the second thing they see, which happens to be the solution to their problem that they can't find.
Okay.
And this is how you enter the conversation that the prospects are having in their minds. It's the captivate and fascinate. And so I'm going to just repeat it quickly one more time by way of review. The captivate is the headline or the problem that your customers or clients have that they don't want. The fascinate is the subheadline or the solution they're looking for that they can't find. And these first two parts of the conversion formula are the keys to successful marketing. And if these first two parts are not right or are not doing their job, you never get to part 3, you never get to part 4. And we have a special name for these first two parts, and it's called a position of market dominance. And so you need to get the position of market dominance right. And the next part of the conversion formula is the educate.
Okay.
And so now that the third component. Oh, I'm sorry, Chucky, go ahead.
Michael, like, really good timing, by the way. Your timing is impeccable, because we've got like at least 2 questions. I'm sort of scrolling through here.
Oh, okay.
There at least 2 questions just related to that. So just this idea of the position of market dominance. I'll paraphrase one of the questions. So is this concept of, so when you've established that sort of captivate and fascinate, and as you call it, the position of market dominance, is it worthwhile to think about it as you now have the license to educate the prospect? So is it almost like a ticket to admission to now educate the prospect?
It is, because now you've got their curiosity. You've presented the solution in a short version. Now, with the educate, now that we've captivated and fascinated them, we got their attention, which is, ordinarily very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But because the captivate and fascinate were so effective, we have the time to give the prospect more information on how we go about solving the problem. And, normally that's about a minute to a minute and a half in duration. I have seen some educates work successfully for a whole 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
And so that all varies, but the shorter the better usually.
And then the second question was, again, within the concept of how we've got to figure out what the competition isn't doing if we want to grow and expand and capture market share. So one of the questions related to that was, it seems like my competition, they educate first. So what you're saying, Michael, to do is to delay the educate till after captivate and then fascinate.
Yeah.
Because part of what they're saying is a lot of what they see their competition doing is their competition is in the marketplace educating first.
Right.
Thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, that's what everybody's doing, Shuki. Everybody's educating. Everybody's line listing services. Everybody's talking about largest selection. Everybody's talking about lowest prices, best service. That's as I think I might have mentioned last week. That's what I call I hope so marketing, because yeah, if you talk about lowest prices or best service, most convenient, we specialize, we're insured, we're honest. The customer's saying to themselves, I hope so. I wouldn't do business with a company that isn't experienced, that doesn't provide good service. I wouldn't do business with a company that wasn't honest and sincere.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do business with a company that wasn't experienced. I hope so. I hope so.
That's so
and
true.
yeah, it just leads into the fact that everybody starts with the educate, like you said, because they want to make sure that they get out every service that they have, every single one, and make sure that it's in a, they put it sometimes in a 60-second elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And line list everything. Like they're gonna be missing something, where it's not addressing the customer's problem at all. It's the educate component, and you can't start there.
Michael, that's powerful. It's very helpful. And
then,
I'm getting it's nice. Like, we're getting a number of thank yous on that. So a number of TYs and thank yous. So yeah, I'll continue on.
Okay. And so we get to the close. And this is a very important part of the conversion formula. I don't want to minimize it, but it is the last step, because you can't get to the close if you don't have the attention of the prospect. And that's what the captivate and the fascinate does, along with the educate. And so we always have to end the conversion formula with an offer that has to be so compelling and so irresistible that the prospect would be foolish not to take it. And so we have broken down a compelling offer into 5 components. Now, some of those I gave stories on, but the first component that I'd like to talk about is scarcity and urgency.
Okay.
Now, and by the way, it's important to note that I'm going to outline 5 components of a compelling offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that your offer has at least one of these.
Interesting.
But it's better if it has more than one. It makes it really compelling if it has more than one of what I'm about to talk about.
Okay. And Michael, please hold that thought. And I want to pinpoint that point specifically. So it seems like for the offer to be compelling, it's got to have at least one of these 5 ingredients that you'll share with us.
One or more. Yep.
And the best practice is to have more than one.
I gotcha. Yes.
Great.
Right.
Oh, okay. Very, very helpful. All right.
Right.
I just wanted to pin that down.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes. So scarcity and urgency, this offer ends tomorrow or a certain date.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try to get in order to get the prospect to react,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have a deadline of some sort. And then we couple that with scarcity, where there's only 3 left, or there's only 10 left. Many times when I was in the ski business, we used to run 4-day sales. That's it. And day one was always the most successful day, but day 4 was the second most successful day. So day 1 was always the most successful day because everybody knew it was just a 4-day sale and they wanted to get the best inventory. Okay, so that's the scarcity and urgency, right? There's only so much good inventory. At least that's the problem or that's the issue we portrayed. There's only so much good inventory. So you want to get there first. And by the way, out of all 4 days, the biggest line at the opening was the first day, where the second biggest line at the opening was the last day. So it's that scarcity and urgency that really, and I know some people might be saying, well, you keep relating it to retail. This works incredibly well for any business. This is not anything that we talk about is not industry specific.
Yeah,
it's
so
not
industry agnostic, right? So it cuts
Right.
across multiple industries. And by the way, that's both products and services, online, offline.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep. And it's services too, like you said. Yeah, absolutely. It works the same way. So so having a deadline for when the offer ends, and then having scarcity. And the reason why the last day worked so well is that was it.
Yeah.
And we used to promote that real heavily, that this is it. It's all over. There's no more deals. It ends on Sunday. And that's what we did. We went from Thursday to Sunday. And it created incredible urgency. There were sales that we would do $1 million in 4 days. It created that much urgency. So scarcity and urgency is a very, very powerful component of a compelling offer. The second one that's very powerful, the second component, is the risk reversal, where the seller in the transaction takes all or most of the risk. Just like the ski business example. We took all the risk when we said ski the ski 3 times. Okay, bring it back for a brand new pair if you don't like it. And keep bringing it back until we get it right. We added that as well.
Wow.
So yeah, and no one ever brought it back a second time. Out of the very few that came back the first time, nobody ever brought it back the second time. So the risk reversal. Now, risk reversals can also come in the form of guarantees, whether it's a 5-year guarantee that you might have if you're in the construction industry, or some type of performance guarantee.
Yeah. So a couple questions from the audience related to this.
Yep.
With a satisfaction guarantee, so folks are saying they see businesses use 100% satisfaction guarantee. Does that relate to this risk reversal concept or not? Absolutely.
Great. Absolutely. Now, the thing about 100% satisfaction guarantee is a lot of people use it. So it's still good. It's still a risk reversal, but it's a little overused, and consumers, unless you're specific as to what satisfaction means, then the customer has a tendency to overlook it.
That's really interesting. Now, would it be a really good occasion for a business owner to combine that 100% satisfaction guarantee, Michael, with something else that is another ingredient of a compelling offer?
Yes. Okay. So you could, well, one of the things we did, hear me out. So we had on our 4-day sales, we had scarcity, right? Lack of inventory if you don't react.
Yep.
Urgency, just 4 days. A risk reversal, where you ski the ski 3 times, you don't like it, bring it back for a brand new pair.
Yeah.
And then we had packaging and bundling. Right. Which is the third component of a compelling offer. Now, the packaging and bundling is when I gave the example of packaging the clothing. And so in one sale or one offer, we had scarcity and urgency, we had a risk reversal, and we had packaging and bundling.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, and so we had three of the components of a compelling offer in one offer, and that can be very effective. And so in continuing on, another component of a compelling offer is adding low cost but high value to your product or service. Now, let me see if I can give you an example. This won't be in the ski business, but this example, I'm going to give you a couple of examples, actually.
Great.
So the first example is, let's say you sell popcorn in a bag for $5.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's say for packaging, you have an option to use a plastic reusable container
Okay.
to hold the popcorn instead of the bag. And it costs $1 more. Now, in all likelihood, the perceived value of the plastic packaging will likely allow you to increase the retail sales price of the popcorn to $7 because of the perceived value. There's much more value perceived in a plastic container that's reusable
Mm-hmm.
than a bag that's thrown away, right? So you can actually increase your selling price by $2 with just $1 of additional cost.
That's remarkable. And you don't change the amount of the popcorn that's packaged, correct?
Right. No, that would stay the same. So
That's
all
really
the costs associated with the production of the popcorn would
Mhm.
stay the same. It just costs $1 more to put it into and to obtain a plastic package.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by your use of the phrase perceived value. In fact, we're getting some comments on that because look, a lot of growth could be packaged right in that sort of concept of the perceived value of a thing, of a service, of a product. So that's a really interesting concept. And you're right. You know, I could see how a plastic bag probably doesn't command as much perceived value as like a plastic container that's recyclable.
Right.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And so another example is a toothpaste company. Okay. They would put a QR code on their tube of toothpaste, not on the outside packaging, but in a tube of toothpaste that leads to a video that shows people 4 areas inside their mouth. And I'm making this up, by the way, but you'll get the concept here. That leads to a video that shows 4 areas inside their mouth that are neglected, that are most neglected while brushing their teeth, and the best way to brush those areas. All right. So that's a great, because information is also a great way to add value. And what's the cost of that? Not that much.
Not that much. It's funny because even just a second example, Michael, that's also a nice marketing feedback loop, right?
Absolutely.
Because you're bringing them on some kind of a landing page or some piece of content that you control, and you get to continue the conversation with the customer based on that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Right. That's right, Chicky. Great point. You get to upsell, downsell, and cross-sell right from that point after they see the video.
Exactly.
I mean, it's called, it's suggestive selling at that point.
Interesting. Take a note on that.
And so, I'll just review packaging and bundling again real quickly because just to cover that point. And by the way, so we've covered 4 areas right now of a compelling offer, and I gave an example of where we use 3 of them in one offer.
Correct.
The real bonanza is to be able to use all 5, but we'll get to that in a minute. But the 5th one is indifference to the outcome. Yeah. See, generally speaking, the prospect can tell when you're pressing to make a sale. They just can. I don't know. Sometimes it's body language. Sometimes it's your words.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's your level of too much excitement.
Michael, I heard someone in my professional network call that commission breath, sales commission breath, right? They want to make the sale, and you could smell that they really want to make that sale, and they don't care about the value to you or the ability to have that address a problem that you have, right? It's really interesting. So yeah, now continue on. I'm really fascinated by this point of indifference to the outcome.
Yeah. So basically, they can feel that you're pressing, that their problem isn't on your mind. Your problem is on your mind. So by being indifferent to the outcome, and I'm going to give you a quick example of what I mean by that. But by being indifferent, it puts you and the prospect on the same side of the table. Along with, and one strategy is really getting to know the person in terms of their inspiration, goals, and objectives. That really helps with this process. If you could talk with if you're doing a one-to-one sales presentation, getting to know the person's true inspirations.
Yes.
Really understanding what their number one goal is.
Yeah.
And their objectives really helps with that process.
Great. So it's interesting. I mean, Michael, we just got a comment about the educate that I think relates to what you're saying. So is the educate a two-way street? So how would you get that number one goal and that kind of insight on what really drives a prospect? Can you do that through the educate, where you're having a back and forth conversation? So they're educating you and you're educating them. I mean, what's sort of your impression of that?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because the sales presentation is the educate in the conversion formula.
Interesting.
The sales presentation is actually the educate.
That's really interesting.
Because you've already captivated and fascinated them to get into your sales process. So now it's the educate. And so the selling process is actually the educate, but it's also the offer.
Yeah.
So the sales process of the last, the sales presentation, if you will, as the last two components of the conversion formula.
It's really interesting.
And that's why we're saying indifference to the outcome is one of those components to make the offer compelling, because you have the prospect's problem, your concern, and the way you portray that your concern is the prospect's problem that you want to solve. Whatever that is, it could be their number one goal. It could be they have a problem brushing their teeth, in the example that I gave. That they have too many cavities when they go to the dentist because they're not hitting certain areas. So it's when you can get more concerned about their problem. And one strategy, and I'm just going to throw out a phrase here, one particular strategy that's used is whether you work with me or someone else, you need to take these steps to accomplish your goals. So whether you work with me or someone else, that's indifference.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a powerful phrase.
And that's what I mean by indifference to the outcome. So in review again, the four components of a compelling offer where we left off last week is scarcity and urgency, risk reversal, adding low cost but high value to your product, or I should say adding low or no cost but high value to your product or service. Also packaging and bundling. And then finally, that indifference to the outcome, where the prospect is convinced that you have their well-being in mind and not yours.
Yeah.
And that's yes. And so, and one of the things too, Chucky, as we have about 6 minutes left, one of the things I wanted to get back to on that packaging and bundling story that I had.
Yep.
What was interesting in the aftermath of that,
okay,
is that one of our competitors, salespeople, told one of our salespeople that people were going into that competitor's store looking for a clothing package. And when they said they didn't have it, they'd walk out.
Wow.
And that's what I mean about doing what your competition isn't doing. It's developing that creativity. So that compelling offer of packaging and bundling and the way that we package clothing was not offered by the competitors yet. And so, because people always comparison shop.
Yes.
I always said, Chucky, that if I ever added another store to the store, we had 5 stores, but if I ever added a store to the stores we had, it would be right across the street from the store we have, because with a different name, because then people will be able to comparison shop. They're gonna go in there. You know what I mean? They're gonna go in there. So, but anyway, when you really have a compelling offer when the competition isn't doing it, and the competition actually feels the impact.
You know what this reminds me of? It makes more sense than why you refer to this as the position of market dominance, right? Even just given the example that you shared, Michael, where you've created something, an experience, a product or service that's so compelling, where your competition, right? Your competitors, they're getting the pressure of that, right? So people are walking in and saying, hey, why are you not doing things like Michael's doing it, right? Or, it's just really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And
where are your clothing packages?
Where are clothing packages? I mean, and in some ways, like, you now dominate the marketplace, given the fact that you've introduced this great sort of creation where you've now sensitized customers and prospects and clients, like, ask for that, right?
Right.
That's
right.
really, really interesting. It's, what it reminds me of a little bit, Michael? It reminds me of this phrase, creation over competition. Right. Yeah. One of the ways that you can outcompete is, you create, and it seems like that's part of the principle that's at play here. Now, I'm fascinated by this story, and Michael, give us a sense. So any other loose ends that you want to tie together on this?
Yeah.
So it seems like this had a real big impact on the business.
Well, I want to talk about what we're going to talk about next time. And
great.
I want to touch upon what's called the buyer's journey. And this is something that a lot of business owners, they understand it conceptually, but when it comes time to really understand it enough to implement strategies around it, they're not into that. And it's centered around the fact that only 1 to 3% of any market in any industry is ready to buy today, is ready to buy now. And so all of the competitors in your marketplace are desperately going after that 1 to 3% of the marketplace, 1 to 3%, where what we're going to talk about next week is something called the buyer's journey, where where the 97 to 99% of the prospects reside, and how we go about capturing those prospects. So that I would like to, definitely talk about that next week, and talk about how people aren't following up. They're just not following up.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, Michael, you really struck a chord. I'm getting some comments, and there's some folks providing feedback like, can we have another hour where you talk about that now? Folks, you'll have to wait till the next episode, and that's next Monday.
Yes. Well, let me say this. As we sign off today, to get a copy of the book, Powerful Business Strategy, simply go to our website, www.nextstepcfo.net. It's totally complimentary. And until next Monday at noon Eastern time, for Chucky Obio, my name is Michael Barbarita. And remember, don't keep doing what your competition is doing.
Yes.
You have been listening to Powerful Business Strategies, finding out that everything you ever learned about growing your business is wrong. Tune in next week and every week at noon Eastern Time on W4CY Radio with your host, Michael Barbarita of Next Step CFO and moderator Chucky Obio.